Lepo pozdravljeni. Dobrodošli v Womarc dogodek Meet the Master z Rafaelo Dražić. Danes bomo predstavili večkrat nagrajevano oblikovalko vizualnih komunikacij Rafaelo Dražić iz Splita. V tem Zoom predavanju bo Rafaela govorila o svojem kreativnem procesu in potem na koncu odgovorila tudi na vprašanja študentov, ki jih bodo potem na koncu zastavili. Z mojim razredom na medijskih komunikacijah bomo spremljali, lahko vam pokažem, bomo spremljali predavanje v kinu Maribox. Lep pozdrav vsem skupaj. Tako, imeli bomo dober screen in pa zvok. Sedaj bi pa mogoče kar takoj na začetku prosil Simono Vidmar, kuratorko Umetnostne galerije Maribor, da bi predstavila z nekaj besedami projekt Womarc in pa seveda oblikovalko. Simona, prosim.
Matej, hvala. Just for anyone listening to the webinar on our YouTube channel or Facebook, or just joining us to the webinar, we will have this very 2 minutes presentation in Slovene, and then we will switch to English with Rafaela. Matej, hvala. Zelo veseli smo, da lahko sodelujemo z tabo, z tvojim razredom, z univerzo na tem projektu, ki ga podpira oziroma s tem predavanjem, ki ga podpira projekt Womarc. Gre za projekt, ki podpira enakost žensk zastopanih na polju umetnosti in je zato predvsem namenjen ustvarjalkam s področja vseh vej umetnosti in kreative, da predajajo svoja znanja in izkušnje mlajšim generacijam. Tako smo povabili Rafaelo Dražić. Rafaelo Dražić, tako kot je rekel Matej, je večkrat nagrajena oblikovalka vizualnih komunikacij. Na njo nas je opozoril Alessandro Vincentelli. Alessandro Vincentelli je kurator iz Velike Britanije, ki je bil tudi kurator našega trienala Eko 8, se pravi 8. edicijo smo letos izvedli v Mariboru v zapuščeni tovarni MTT. Z Rafaelo je Alessandro večkrat sodeloval, mi smo jo poznali predvsem po sodelovanju z slovensko umetnico Jasmino Cibic, ki živi v Londonu in s katero smo tudi mi v preteklosti že večkrat sodelovali. Drugače pa lahko seveda rečem po našem sodelovanju, da je Rafaela neustavljiva, študiozna, polna idej, izredno komunikativna in tako rekoč idealna sodelavka za področje oblikovanja vizualnih komunikacij. Drugače je Rafaela tudi doktorirala in sicer na Univerzi za likovno umetnost v Varšavi. Tam je nato 3 leta tudi poučevala, do leta 2012. Predtem pa še diplomirala iz vizualnih komunikacij na Univerzi v Splitu. Svoje projekte je nato razstavljala tudi na zelo referenčnih galerijskih prostorih v tujini, kot so recimo Kunstwerke v Berlinu, Hamburger Bahnhof v Berlinu, Galerija Foksal v Varšavi, In Between Gallery v Londonu in tako dalje. Še bolj impresivni so njeni naročniki, ki so kulturne institucije, kot so Gallery Storefront iz New Yorka, ki je specializirana za arhitekturo, Gallery Calvert 22 v Londonu, ki je nekako specializiran za vzhodno evropsko umetnost, v Muzeju moderne umetnosti v Varšavi, v Muzeju sodobne umetnosti v Zagrebu, v Kameri Avstriji, v Grazu, oziroma to je sodelavci so Kamera Avstrija v Grazu, ki je specializirana za fotografijo, sodelovala je z Beneškim arhitekturnim bienalom, Nottingham Contemporary in drugimi. Tako da Rafaela ima res impresivno zbirko svojih sodelovanj za sabo in seveda impresivno zbirko izdelkov grafičnega oblikovanja in vizualnih komunikacij, ki prepričana sem, nam jih bo zdaj zelo zanimivo in slikovito tudi predstavila. So that's from my side. Thank you, Matej.
Thank you both for this introduction. Hello, everyone, once again, and thank you for tuning in. First of all, I would like to thank UGM's director Breda Kolar-Sluga and curator Simona Widmer for the invitation, and Boom Arts organization for their support. Due to various circumstances, it's been a while since my last public lecture. So thanks to this, I finally found some time to reflect on my recent, but also have another view on some of my 10 or more years old works. I tried to collect physically all the publications I've designed throughout the years, as books are making majority of my practice, and I realize my career is only 1 meter or so long. Besides books, occasionally I do projects that might be called experimental or hybrid, and I also decided to show some of them today. Here I'll share my presentation now. Okay. Okay. It's okay. So here I'll start with Adhoc Project from 2010. Back then I got the invitation to participate in secret exhibitions, which was a series of events taking place in private apartments, among other artists who faced censorship. A year before, so in 2009, my project was censored by the City Museum of Split, as it spoke about local elections for a city mayor, when a local capitalist was one of the candidates, and when there was a lack of public discussion what is happening in the city. So when I got the invitation to exhibit in a private flat in Zagreb, I proposed to make an event in a real time by using a fax machine on which I was receiving various images and messages from the previously invited participants, without knowing what they will send and if they are going to send anything at all, risking that the whole project might be a failure, and putting at the same time curators in an unpleasant position where they have no control over the content. So while we were in that apartment, fax machine was printing out contributions that were coming out. For example, this one is from a graphic designer from Berlin who wanted to share a story about posters she produced after she got invited from Goethe Institute to hold a workshop in Algeria She told me she got arrested there for taking just ordinary photos and faced other unpleasant situations just being a woman. So she was in a doubt what kind of posters she's going to create, a nice touristic ones for that she's funded for, basically, or personal ones. So she came up with a 2 series of posters, and these are some of them. Another example is the author who sent a very tiny pattern, which took a really long time to print, wanting to censor the others who were trying to establish the contact and send their contribution. All those contributions were printed out on a photosensitive paper, which means they will fade out or disappear in some time. And so this roll of paper is similar to those for receipts we get every day in shops. And if we keep them for a while, we realize that the letters and numbers are fading out. So this element of losing the data is integral part of this work. And the reason why I decided to self-publish the book, which brings documentation of this project. Actually, this is the first book I've ever made, and it's full of mistakes. So this is some of the spreads, even this now quite famous art collective Slavs and Tatars also participated. This is their contribution, parts from them to me throughout some imaginary and historical places. This is the pattern I've been mentioning earlier. This is another work from around same time. So it was 2009. It is a book for 2 that I started as a response to a simple question, what is yet to be designed, which was a project by Museum of Contemporary Art in Warsaw, in which I was invited to take a part. I was developing that project further on during my doctorate studies at Academy of Fine Arts in Warsaw. And during my stay there, I met a very interesting person, Marcin Gokieli, who is a philosopher, writer, and a musician. And he got very excited about him writing stories for the books I am about to design. So we started to work closely together. It was an unusual process, as some of my graphic interpretations of his text made him change and reinvent some parts. So the whole story split and ends differently for each reader. I also organized couple of events where people were invited to read together. This is one event from Zagreb. There are also some events in Warsaw. This is the second edition which we made, and this one was printed on a cheap copy machine and binded manually with elastic strap. Pages were stapled together, so the readers had to sneak into to see the illustrations. This is how this little book looked. This was one of the events. But to prove that this project, a book for 2, can be also a functional design object and not only artist book, I've developed a book as a didactical tool for an adult and a child. For the text, I use Bruno Munari's beautiful short essay on time. Books are obviously something that I like to do the most, as this media, unlike some others, offer much more space for creative expression. I'm going to show just some pieces of my very early Bookworks, a catalog for art manifestation, Split Salon from 2011, when the theme was of the exhibition was lie, and a play of these words is lagati, said to lie, and to expose. I believe that in Slovenian it's similar or the same. So depending on the accent, I propose that the catalog, except the textual and documentational part, should also include 37 pages printed only in full black, as a reference to the 37th edition of the manifestation, but also as a space for contemplation or graphic interpretation of the term crnalaj. I believe it's the same in Slovenian, we use it often here, or maybe even intentional confusion of the readers. Well, first they told me this is crazy and increasing production costs, but they end up like this idea very much. Another early example is a book cover for the exhibition held in Banja Luka, titled Where Everything is Yet to Happen. I found those topics on war and politics too difficult to express in just one image or typography, so I've decided not to have any of that, but to refer to the title and leave it blank, and to invite the readers to invent their own cover, to insert their own images. I'm jumping now to, I believe this was in 2014. I was asked to design a publication with a funny title, Politics of Feelings, Economies of Love, which is an unfinished documentation with various textual and visual communications, contributions, related to the relationships of politics and collective sentiment, as well as love as a trigger for dedicated but unpaid work. I believe we all experienced that. Here I based design on this pastel orange color, as this particular shade is used as a standard color for newspaper inserts on economy. And the editors also provided a line from Bob Dylan's song, which goes, I'm walking in the parade of liberty, but as long as I love you, I'm not free. I believe I said it right. As their own kind of editorial note. And they asked me to find kind of special place for this in the book. And I decided to break it down through the interior. So this is how it looked. Another project in 2016, Karol Radziszewski, my also friend and colleague from Warsaw. He's a Polish artist, activist, and a publisher. Was on his residential program at the Museum of Contemporary Art, where he was doing his research on queer art in Croatia. And he was about to make his project called Queering the Museum. Karol has been publishing Dick magazine. This is the first and so far the only art magazine from Central and Eastern Europe dedicated to art and homosexuality. It's brilliantly designed, and I remember it's one of the first example of Polish contemporary design I've seen when I came first to Warsaw in 2009. He gathered his research and decided to publish it in his new issue. But before that, he invited me to join him in a performance that was held in the museum. Karol set up a sort of an office in a small museum place next to the permanent display. That space and its position is actually quite strange, as no one knows its purpose. So Karol decided it suits him the best, as it is awkward, and it turned it into our office for one day, in which we were working on a new issue during the performance. Visitors were surprised by this, and we also got some company, students, art historians, and other artists visiting us. His research shed a light on a life of a late former museum's director who died of AIDS, and we decided he will be in the focus on the cover of this issue. Actually, he's going to be our cover boy. In museum's archive, I found a great photo of Dalibor Matičević, that's his name, with a mask, and I felt this photo resonated so well. But for the cover, I decided to do a little twist by inverting white-coated side of paper on the inside, leaving uncoated this cardboard rough and gray side as a front cover. And therefore I inverted the print, so full color inside and black on the outside, which is non-standard and should be the other way around according to design standards. These are some of the spreads I will show you quickly. There were a couple of interviews inside, a couple of reproductions, art from 70s, mostly a famous collector from Zagreb, also something from museum's collection he found out related to the topic he was researching. This is the last page, and now I'll go back a little bit in past and show you something from 2011. When I was invited to take a part in Urban Festival, which is dedicated to art in public space. Each year, organizers invite artists and designers to make newly commissioned works. And that year they had Zagreb skyscrapers in their focus. So I went there to do my research, and I was immediately attracted by famous Cibona Tower, which was built on the occasion of Universiada, our World Student Games, being held in Zagreb in 1987. And back then, I mean in 2011, that building was a headquarter of Agrokor, the biggest Croatian private company. And their decision to move to this exact place and occupy 14 of the highest floors of the skyscraper and placing their logo on the top can be read as a sort of sample of process of the privatization of public space over public good. And they didn't even let us go to the rooftop, and I got even more intrigued what can be done here. Then I came up with the idea to project something on its facade, which was a very complex and technically demanding thing to do. I also wanted this action to remain unannounced. So me and the team of the curators were located on a secret location from which we projected textual and visual materials designed by, previously designed by already invited authors as a commentary on the business dealings of this company. Wanting to, obviously this is a Croatian flag, and with this letter K, which comes from a Konzum chain supermarket owned by this company. This includes cheap labor and so on, everything you can imagine. Wanting to increase the visibility and to see the media reactions after 2 hours of this action, we forwarded the documentary photographs to the media. But of course, we didn't reveal what this is. We just opened a new Google account on another name, and suddenly all the Croatian news portals posted this as one of the main news. It was interesting to see the comments. Some wrote that this was Photoshop, as this really has an awkward kind of this convex projection. Some said that they've seen it, and some said that they even believe this is just Agrokor's propaganda that we are paying. So after 2 days, I decided that we go in public and take the responsibility. Interesting is that one of the images, this particular one, were used after by various media when they wrote about this company. I'll jump now to Venice. This is Arsenale. In 2014, architect and activist Anadana Beroš exhibited her installation Intermundia at Venice Biennial of Architecture. She asked me to come up with a solution for her research that should somehow become integral part of her mute and coffin-like installation from the outside. And when you enter inside, there is strong visual and sound experience. I've proposed that her research can find its place in a large-scale book, bind it together with a table next to the installation. So this is how it looked like. It was some 50 centimeters by pages. I'm moving to a couple of examples of artists' books that I did. One very dear project to me was a monograph for conceptual artist Vlado Martek, who is a Croatian visual artist and a poet. I've been always interested and inspired by his works, and this monograph brings together his works in the medium of photography from 70s to nowadays, and it's titled Preparations for Photography. As Vlado is always questioning final outcome and final artistic form, I realized that this monograph shouldn't have standard but defragmented form. And I found inspiration partly in Fluxus books, which were always moving away from standard form of a book, considering it bourgeois object. And I also found some inspiration in photo paper boxes. The final result is this box with 3 books inside, one that contains editor's text, another with reproductions, and the third one is the interview with the artist, binded in ready-made envelope, this yellow one, that hides a set of his Polaroids. Another example of artist book published by Nottingham Contemporary Museum was for Jelena Popova. She's a British artist with Russian origins. Her practice constantly pushes at the edges of what painting can be and how can painting also disappear. And that is why I came up with the solution in which the cutout elements I took from her paintings are hidden behind the book cloth that is very similar to canvas for painting. This is one of the recent works I did. It's a magazine for Sonic Acts. Sonic Acts is an interdisciplinary arts organization based in Amsterdam. This year they started a new magazine dedicated to art in the age of pollution, as it writes here. What they asked me was not to create a standard form of a magazine, but more something like fanzine, wanting this publication to be as much as accessible as it can be. They named magazine Echoes as a hybrid of echo and echoes, and I've based design around this manually stretched typography. And to add another layer of reading, I proposed to the editor a so-called satellite pages filled with a visual essay printed on a very rough wrapping paper. This is cover of the second edition. And this is another project in public space. In 2016, I participated in the project called Artist for Neighborhood, when I was invited to make a project in public space related to the neighborhood of Trešnjevka in Zagreb, which has a very interesting history. I got intrigued by the ruins of former silk factory from 19th century that lies on a large piece of land. And often we see these kind of places turning into cultural centers, or they get some kind of protection being a cultural heritage. But here this isn't the case, and I was interested why. In my research, I've discovered a dodgy business of privatization that happened during the 90s when Yugoslavia fell apart, and intentional ignorance and the lack of care for this site, since its central location makes it very attractive for all kinds of investments. Therefore, I discovered many criminal links involving even church making plans for this land. My idea was to create a sign pointing to this place, which reads, maybe you can understand it, this is where the housing for workers will be built, I guess. But the tenants of this building next to it were afraid, so I didn't get their permission to use the facade for the inscription. Taking all these obstacles into account, I took a different direction and turned my project into a sort of performance. This was the inspiration for it. We gathered to lay down this foundation stone with my inscription, which I slightly changed in the meanwhile. So it reads, housing for women workers will be built here, as a homage to women who were predominantly workers in that former factory. I did not want to treat this as a sculpture or return it to the organizers after the happening. On the contrary, I wanted it to remain on that land, and we left it there after a so-called ceremony. And it must have been that it bothered someone, as it was removed the day after, and it isn't actually very easy to remove it, as this is a 50 kilos of heavy concrete block. This typography I made in my students' day in Warsaw. I'll jump now to one of the recent works you might know. I felt fortunate to have the opportunity to design visual identity of ECHO 8. After over a decade of postponing, I felt that this new beginning has to be present in the visual system, and that is why I looked into a first edition of Triennial and take that as my starting point, and then build around it. Having in mind three key elements, which are ecology, contemporary art, and the place, which was the factory, I decided to focus on all of that and see how the basic typeface can appropriate images. The end result is so-called type of photos that was invented way back in Middle Ages. And here I developed dynamic system in which letters are always changing, representing those three key elements. In combination with the handwritings, mine and Simona's. These are a set of posters I've developed as merch, and as Echo 8 had such an intriguing title, A Letter to the Future, I've decided to conclude this presentation with a letter I posted exactly 10 years ago. This letter was a part of mail art project where artists and designers were invited to think about this archaic medium and send their contributions in the form of mail via regular post. I've been thinking about this and decided to put an empty A4 sheet of paper between two indigo papers. So my contribution was actually made on its way between me and them, recording its way from Croatia to Australia. This is my final slide. So thank you for listening. I'll just stop share now. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rafaela, for the lecture. Now is the best to ask some questions from students and from me or Simona. I just want to ask, in this project ECHO, what was your brief?
What was my brief? That's a question for Simona.
Just in a sentence and two.
I can't even remember what we were talking about. Well, my brief, was to what was my brief, Simona? Please help, as I can't really, you know, Matej is asking, what did you particularly ask me to, and as I have a foggy brain, I can't remember exactly what was your starting point when you approached me. Sorry, I'm.
I think it was quite straightforward. So we needed a visual identity for the project. And that was basically it. We were not, there was one thing that was open and remained open, and it's still open, kind of. We don't have visual identity for the ECO. All previous editions were designed one after another, and we kind of decided to proceed this way. So we asked Rafaela to do a visual identity for this edition. That means that left us without kind of a logo for the Eco 8, because it's just for the Eco triennial, because we just have a identity for Eco 8, and this is our problem or a challenge now that we have to work on in the meantime when we are preparing for the next edition. But otherwise, it was a very straightforward affair. We will do this and this. We need visual identity, and we will do this and that kind of printing material. We'll do these activities online, and so forth and so on. It was a long, long list of our needs. Rafaela.
Yes. That's why actually I can't remember there was anything kind of specific from you to me, and the thing you just said that you don't have your visual identity. I think that's a good thing, and this is something you shouldn't change. You should continue this practice by having something new for each edition. And those three key elements I've mentioned in my presentation, ecology and place and contemporary art. This is something that was proposed by my side, having in account three letters, and this is how I played with this three letters and three key elements.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Matej. What we did is we presented Rafaela our previous editions, of course, and our catalogs from the previous editions. And I think this green color is coming from the first edition, from Eco One, or I don't even remember, from the 80s.
Exactly.
Exactly. And then Rafaela went on and developed this type of photo, or phototype. What is it? Type of photo. Type of photo, which is just excellent. It's something old but new, and it's really exciting. And just, you know, for me it was so refreshing, because Rafaela was just using photos that we did when we were going alone, you know, that we took of the place, of the factory, or us checking the factory, and Rafaela just incorporated those in the typography. Just very simple photos that we did. This was just a really refreshing, you know, method or work to do.
Okay, thank you. Why do you include it handwriting, yours and from Simona?
Yes, that was, I was leaning on to the title. Well, there is Echo 8 as a main title, and then there is a title of the manifestation, which was a letter to the future. So I wanted to have this element also present, like a handwriting, like this is something coming from a person, and I wanted to have this handwriting in a contrast to this digitally constructed typeface. As a I thought that it worked well as a contrast. Well, I wasn't able to produce such a nice handwritings for both Slovenian and English titles, so I asked Simona for a little help.
And now maybe just to ask you, what is your creative process? How do you start?
Well, to summarize it, my creative process is not always the same. Of course, it depends on the nature of work, of a task, I may say. But what I can say generally is that I spend more time thinking than clicking. So yeah, that's, if that replies.
Okay, very good, thank you. Maybe some more questions from our students. I will just go there because we have some problems with technique, so I have to be on my phone. I just have to go to them. Okay. Maybe from you.
So my question to you is, do you need artistic abilities and drawing skills in order to succeed as a graphic designer?
Is that a question? Do I need it personally, or do I think that a designer should have?
Your opinion.
My opinion.
If designer should have.
designer, not necessarily, but it's a good thing to have these skills. I think sometimes I even draw sketches just by playing pen or pencil or whatever I have.
Okay. Maybe another.
What do you do? What do you do when you don't know how to proceed while designing?
I'll just erase what I did and start all over.
Okay. Another one. You could put it in.
Sorry, because I always recall this Ernest Hemingway saying when there's just a perfect sentence after which you don't know how to proceed, you just erase it, and that's what I apply to my practice. Always start, new start until you get it.
All right. My question is, what is your opinion on how should a graphic designer start his career? Should it be via starting on his own, becoming a freelancer, or should you start with an agency, well, working for someone else?
Well, that depends. I think that's quite personal preference. But I think it's always good to collect some experience by working with or next to someone else. I can say this was also my experience after graduating. I've been working in a multidisciplinary studio in Zagreb, and afterwards I've been an intern in a Barnbrook design studio in London, and I can say this helped me very much to start on my own.
Okay. Maybe one question from me. What do you think is any difference between graphic designer and visual artist?
Is any different? What kind of visual artist?
I think in some projects. I saw you have your own projects also. So.
You know what? I think that these projects of my own or projects that maybe go beyond of what I do every day. In those projects, I can say that I'm using the same method that I use when I work design. I always analyze and then summarize and then end up in something else. So that is, I believe, a strong connection. But the end result may be that graphic design is just one element of many others.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe one more question.
Hi, I want to know, how do you deal with creative blocks during your process?
Oh, well, I believe I've said something about it. I just simply erase and start all over. The thing is, or the truth is, that I work a lot and I have no time for blockages. That becomes a reality when you got really busy with your practice, and these blockages become rare as you practice more and more, and when you have more and more experience. I'm not saying that I don't have any blockages. I do, and I'm still learning, and this is what makes our profession wonderful. I think you learn with each project. I'm learning with every book I design because I read this book, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe Simona, do you have another question?
Yes, sure. Maybe a very simple one. How come you decided to do a PhD in Warsaw? First, maybe why PhD and why Warsaw?
Yeah. Why PhD? It wasn't like a PhD that I wanted to do at first place, but I wanted to continue my education after an internship in London. I realized that back then Croatia wasn't part of EU, which made education expenses super high for our standards, and UK was a little bit out of reach because that meant that I had to take a huge student loan, and this is something that I really didn't want to do. And I was thinking, okay, where will I go? And back in 2009, I had a little music project, and that project took me to Warsaw, and I got really excited by their scene design and clubbing, I must say. And actually, that is where I met that person, Marcin Gokieli, who became my close collaborator for years. And at the time, I discovered that there is a PhD program at University of Warsaw, which is focused on book design. And I said to myself, okay, this sounds perfect. And then I applied. So yes, I discovered this course, and I've spent 3 years in Warsaw thanks to music. So it wasn't straightforward design searching for school.
Thank you, Rafaela. So how does it go? How do you find an internship in London?
Oh, I didn't find it. It was actually thanks to Maribor and Magdalena Festival, where I exhibited my graduation piece, which was an online magazine that was spotted by Jonathan Barnbrook, who was a lecturer that year. Jonathan is a famous designer, best known for designing for David Bowie, Noam Chomsky, Shiseido, Zen Perfume. And he spotted my work there, so in Maribor, and he contacted me and asked me if I'm willing to come to London and be his intern. Yeah, that's the story behind.
Wow, that's really great story, especially
Well,
from
we don't know.
That's really great. Maybe coming from my side, you know, from institution that is looking for a designer. What is for you the most important thing about the institution you're approaching or the client you work with? And how do you build this relationship?
Well, I believe that there are already things happening before someone contact me. It's probably because we already share kind of same sensibility, same visual language. So there is always something in common we have. And the most important thing, I guess I would leave it to communication. That is actually something the most important in the process.
Sorry, but were you ever really looking for the clients, or were clients always kind of approaching you and looking for you? What was this dynamic?
Yeah, frankly, I don't like word client, as I always say that I work with someone and not for someone. There is a big difference. I do get your question. It's well, after I graduated, I really wanted to work only in the field of culture, not advertising, not other fields. And I was very much aware that it's going to be very difficult because, you know, culture in our region, I may say, it's really difficult field to work on. And so I wasn't knocking on doors, on galleries' doors, no, but I was aware that my self-initiated projects might invite someone to hire me for something else. And this is how I started it all. But yeah, I have to also remember I was working within a studio for a year, and then an internship for another 6 months, and then I was also teaching a little bit. So it was a fusion of various things at the beginning.
And maybe last question from my side, and then it's back to Matej. So maybe what you said now, it's already an answer to my question, but anyhow, so how did you come to collaborate with international art institutions? How did that kind of leap or jump happen?
I moved quite a lot. I was also spending some time in Berlin and London and Warsaw, and there I met people, and those are places where I start to work. But I think also internet helped. People saw my projects, and one project led to another, and that is how it happened.
Thank you, Rafaela. Matej, back to you.
Okay, maybe one more question. You said that you worked also in a studio. What's the difference between working in a studio or working in a culture field with arts institutions?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a freedom. The main difference, well, while you work within a studio, there are certain guidelines you have to follow, established by obviously someone else, because it's not your studio. So you are working under art or creative direction of someone else, and you really have to be, I have to say, you have to be skilled to follow this. But that wasn't something that was fulfilling me, and that's why I realized I want to work on my own, where I will be the creator of everything, and where I will be in charge for entire process and responsible for everything. Also, the main difference would be an overview on entire situation, which makes it very complex when you work alone. But at the same time, you have an overview on every detail, and sometimes one very small detail can make a big difference.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think from our side, that's it. Maybe Simona?
Yes, maybe just to, I mean, of course, there are many books that you haven't showed now in your presentation. What I want to say is you've done a lot.
A meter, Simona. A meter of books. Sorry.
A meter of books. You see, a meter of books. And what's your kind of inspiration for the future? Or aspiration for the future? What's your kind of goal? Where you wanna go, be, change, move? What's that thing that drives you now for the future? Apart from your small daughter that you have, of course.
Yes. What I would like to change or improve, I would like to have more time for self-initiated projects, which I had time at the beginning. I've showed you some of them, and now, especially with my little daughter, I'm barely finding time to do my regular practice, and so I hope in the future I will again be able to find this time to do something independent, something on my own, as I think that's a real luxury time.
It's true. Maybe just because I really like this coincidence with Maribor and Magdalena, and now us collaborating, and UK and Alessandro Vincentili and so on. So how, because Magdalena, as we all know, it's kind of gone now. I don't know, Matej, if there are any ideas about bringing this festival back. But anyway, we were all part of it as well. We kind of all collaborated with this big and important, I think, platform, right? How important are those festivals for young designers now, or are these social media platforms now replacing this kind of old school gatherings? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I believe I already belong to this generation that prefers that prefer offline gatherings rather than online, but in the light of pandemic, I guess now we are limited, and those manifestations like Magdalena are something brilliant, I must say. I've been coming there every year when I was a student. I remember meeting such an exciting people, sharing ideas, seeing other works and learning from them, listening to the lectures, hearing design stars. I always remember there were huge stars there. So it's been a wonderful, and I think somehow that this magic cannot be present in anything that happens online. So yeah, I bring Magdalena back.
Yes, maybe one of Matej's students will have the need and the urge to do it, maybe. Matej and Rafaela, that's everything from my side. I would sincerely like to thank you, Rafaela, that you took your time and energy to join us today and present us with your really exciting and unique practice, something between art and visual designing visual communication. Of course, we have to thank one more to the European project WOMART, who is supporting excellence in women creativity. And of course, thank you, Matej, very much for connecting us with your bright new creative power, your students. Thank you both.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Hvala lepa vsem, tudi študentom. Hvala Umetnostni galeriji, Simoni, Rafaeli. Adijo.
Također hvala. Hvala. Bye bye.